In the previous video, I talked about choice paralysis and how when you leave university and you leave the structured world of university, you can find yourself with so many choices for what to do next, and to the point where you can just become paralyzed by all your options. Like I said in the last video, I was definitely like that, just paralyzed. Too much choice can definitely be overwhelming, and it definitely fucked with me. But being able to look back on that time now, it really is a beautiful thing to have so much choice because of what it means and what it says about our lives and our environments. In my third year at McGill, I took what would quickly become my favorite course that I've ever taken. That course was called Human Motivation. One of the books that we had to read was called Why We Do What We Do by a professor of psychology from the University of Rochester named Ed Deci. In one of the chapters, he begins by talking about Bulgaria during the communist regime and how the workers in general there were just not that motivated to work very hard at their jobs. He goes on to explain that this was because the workers didn't see any real outcome from engaging in the behavior of working. Like I said, it was during the time of the communist rule. Everyone had the right to a job. Whether you worked harder or less hard didn't change the salary you were going to get, didn't really affect your job security. There just wasn't really any strong enough and appealing enough outcome to prompt the workers to engage more in their behavior, in their work. This little section in the book has always stood out for me. Firstly, because my parents are Bulgarian. I am a first-generation Canadian. My parents immigrated to Canada a year before they had me, and they actually did live during the communist regime in Bulgaria. The second and bigger reason why this stood out for me is because over the years, this very basic and fundamental idea about the relationship between perceived and current behavior, and how behavior is really, at the end of the day, it's contingent on the type of outcome or lack of outcome that you perceive. This idea has helped me understand so much, like I kid you not, it has helped me understand so much about my life and my environment as a Canadian and as a North American who grew up in a major city in Toronto and who attended a post-university, a post-secondary institution. It's crazy to think just how fortunate myself and my peers were and are. Back in high school, for many of us, it wasn't a question of will we go to university. It was actually a question of which university will we go to. I worked hella hard in grade 12 to get the grades needed to get into McGill. Like, my average jumped like 11% from grade 11 to grade 12. I was committed. When I look back at my behavior, which was to work really hard in grade 12, I was motivated by the outcome that this behavior could give me. That outcome was being able to attend one of the best universities in Canada and in the world, and the outcome of living in Montreal, and ultimately the long-term outcome, and really the underlying outcome was hopefully a good job and career and earnings and all that down the road. Ultimately, the outcome from the behavior of working hard in school for many of us is to be successful in our futures. The key thing here is that I did see an actual link between my current behavior and the future outcome. There was an actual relationship between the two. I understood that if I worked hard enough, I actually could get into McGill. I actually could have a successful future. And I did work hard, and I did get in. Let's take a different example of a grade 12 student, one from a more impoverished background and one who grew up in a very different environment than mine. For some of these kids, the behavior of going to school and working hard doesn't yield the same outcomes in their eyes. For some of these kids, they don't see a link. They don't see a relationship between this type of behavior of working hard in school and the outcome of a stable, comfortable life down the road. For some of them, a successful future doesn't have the strongest of relationships with working hard in school. Not where they're from. I mean, I could have found facts and figures and all that, but it's pretty obvious. Going to school and to university and having an education, it ups your chances so much for having a good life down the road. I'm not saying anything new. For me and for a lot of you guys, again, we didn't even have to think about university. For many of us, it was a given that after grade 12, we were going to be starting university somewhere. That relationship between behavior and outcome was so strong that many of us, myself included, ultimately just took it for granted. Meanwhile, in other environments, many people take for granted the opposite, that school won't get them far. For example, how many artists and rappers do you hear talking about their backgrounds and growing up where they're from and just what the behavior outcome relationships were like for them? Listen to Biggie and that one line in Things Done Changed. Either you're slinging crack rock or you got a wicked jump shot. Or Jay-Z, cough up a lung where I'm from, Marcy son, ain't nothing nice. I never said I was the best rapper. Very different behavior outcome relationships than the ones that I grew up with. And so to fast forward a bit to once I was finished university, here I was with so many choices, so many options, which deep down meant that I had a lot of possible outcomes emerging from my behaviors. The outcome of getting a job and a career was possible with the behavior of job hunting and networking and applying. The outcome of traveling was possible with the behavior of working hard a bit and saving money and buying a plane ticket. The outcome of making YouTube videos was there with the behavior of buying a camera and Googling how to make videos and putting myself out there and all that. Yeah, I had all these options and it was terrifying and it played such a part in making me depressed. But looking back, how beautiful of a thing is it that so many of my choices were an actual possibility. How beautiful is it that for many of us, we've grown up in an environment where we have so many behavior outcome relationships in front of us. A terrifying thing, and not just for a current or a recent grad, but really for anyone, is the fear of not finding and building the life that we want. Not only can building that life be hard, but also the process and the trial and error and the frustration and discomfort of attempting to learn about yourself and ultimately discover what kind of life you want, it can be very daunting. I was, and in a lot of ways, still am, terrified of this journey of discovering what it is that I truly want out of life. What does bring me comfort and what I am always working so hard to be grateful for is that my engagement in the actual behavior of trying to build the life that I want can actually lead me to that outcome down the road. I am fortunate that I live in an environment where that's so fundamental of an outcome. The outcome of living the life that I want can actually happen as a result of my behaviors. There is a relationship. There is a link. That's special. That's special. So yeah, to wrap it up, trust me, I get it. Choice paralysis is such a thing and it can be so overwhelming, and like it did for me, it can contribute so much to us becoming depressed. And again, on top of that, we can end up feeling guilty for feeling overwhelmed because we're so fortunate. But just understand this whole idea of behavior outcome relationships and understand that a huge reason why many of us become so overwhelmed with choice is because, again, many of us live in an environment where all these options can become actual realities by pursuing them. It's not your fault that you're overwhelmed. It really is just the nature of behavior outcome relationships. It's not your fault.